Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a genetic disorder that causes progressive muscle degeneration. It is caused by mutations of a gene located on the X chromosome and affects approximately 1 in 3,100 boys. In rare cases, girls can be affected by DMD as well. People with DMD have skeletal muscle weakness and require wheelchair use by their early teens. With advances in medicine, life expectancy has increased dramatically from the late teens just decades ago to the late 20s and early 30s nowadays. More and more people with DMD are attending colleges. This video examines the accessibility of the UCLA campus as well as the resources available for a student with DMD.
Most first-year UCLA students and many transfer students begin their time at UCLA as residents in the on-campus housing. We interviewed Melissa Barnett, the assignments area manager for undergraduate housing, to ask about accessibility on the Hill.
My name is Melissa Barnett. I'm the assignments area manager for undergraduate housing.
So what are some features UCLA has incorporated into buildings on the Hill in order to make them more accessible to students with conditions like DMD that require them to be in a wheelchair?
So we have a number of accommodations that are in place for students in wheelchairs. So within the rooms themselves, we have roll-in showers, we have remote control doors so that they can just open the door without having to actually push it open. We have grab bars in the shower chairs, grab bars by the toilet, things like that. And then to actually access the building itself, we have ADA card readers, so you need specific access with your recommendation from the Center for Accessible Education. You can get access to the reader that will automatically, it's like a lower level, and you just swipe it and it opens the door just like it would, like for Sproul Hall, where it automatically opens the door.
Are there any recent improvements to accessibility you've noticed in the last few years with recent renovations on the Hill?
So we make changes on an as-needed basis. One of the things that has gone into place, I don't know exactly when it was, but every building has an ADA accessible bathroom. So even if it's a building that has the communal restroom and it's not a private restroom, there is at least one bathroom that is ADA accessible, as well as a lot of the communal restrooms also have shower chairs in at least one of the shower stalls. And then we get recommendations from the Center for Accessible Education. They provide recommendations for students that specifically lay out what the student needs. And if we don't already have a room that has all of that, then we will create a room that has all of that for the student.
Which buildings are the most and the least wheelchair accessible?
So Sunset Village is the most wheelchair accessible because it has the most first floor rooms, so that wouldn't require you to take an elevator. Denev probably has the second most just because it's our one other building that has private restrooms for students. The least accessible would be Hitch or Saxon, probably Hitch because it's the furthest up the hill, but those do not have elevators, so the only wheelchair accessible rooms are going to be first floor rooms.
And how does UCLA housing take physical disabilities into account when assigning buildings or rooms to incoming residents? Is there like a place to indicate specific needs on the housing application?
So within the housing application, there is a page where you can indicate that you have a disability. We don't ask for any medical documentation, nothing like that. It just is a list that we can then reference if we need to. But they are also directed to go to the Center for Accessible Education. So the Center for Accessible Education has a Disabled Student Housing Appeals Board, DSHAB, and they provide housing recommendations for students. And then we get the housing recommendation that lays out exactly what the student needs. So sometimes it's just that they need a double room, that they need air conditioning, but if they do require more in-depth, it'll lay out every single thing that the student needs, and we will identify a space for them and complete that assignment. So any of our DSHAB assignments, we actually assign them before we assign anybody else to make sure that all of our students are placed in rooms that fit them before another student can take it.
And what is the most common complaint you receive about wheelchair accessibility?
I would say recently the most common one that we've gotten is people who are assigned to Denev, and sometimes it's because they prefer Denev. We don't have we only have actually one true first floor space. So even though it might be listed as the first floor, like the room number is 108 or something like that, it's not technically the first floor. There's some sort of like steps or a ramp or something that you need to go up. But we also have ADA rooms, so these are rooms with roll-in showers, grab bars, things like that, that are on higher floors. And so we do have some people who they get concerned when it comes to emergencies for being able to get out, since they can't just go out on their own. But there are locations. I would need to look up the exact name of it, but there's like little safe haven spots where you can, if you are in a wheelchair or you're on crutches, whatever it is, and you need some help getting down the stairs, you can go to that location, and emergency personnel will come up, and there's like a little chair, a stair chair that they can bring you down the stairs on the chair itself.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In order to look at the education resources that would be available to a student with DMD at UCLA, we went to the Center for Accessible Education, or CAE.
I'm Ed McCloskey, the director of the Center for Accessible Education. I've been at UCLA 25 years. I was here when we were the Office for Students with Disabilities. I've always worked with students with physical disabilities. And about 4 years ago, the then director, who had been here for 20 plus years, retired, and I became the director. And so I've been the director for about 3.5 years. We provide academic accommodations for students registered with our office for classroom or to get to classroom accommodations. So that means that we'd help students with note-taking, test-taking, getting to class, perhaps getting a parking permit, accommodations they need in housing. If they have an attendant, we don't have an attendant referral service, but if the attendant needs accommodations, like needs a parking permit or a dining hall pass, we work with the student to get that. And so we advocate for what students need in the classroom or on campus.
Awesome, cool.
And there are lots of different groups on campus. There's the ADA 504 compliance office, and that's where a student or a guest or an employee would go if they feel like they've been discriminated against their disability in some way. There's also the University Committee on Disabilities, or UCOD. They are a campus-wide group of faculty, staff, and students, graduate and undergraduate, that their goal is to increase the awareness of disabilities on campus. And according to the Office of the President, UCOP, they have declared the second week of October to be system-wide Disability Awareness Week. So we put on lots of activities that week and also during the year for students and faculty and staff.
Awesome, cool, thank you. And so on average, about how much annual funding are you provided for the school just for the Center of Accessible Education?
We receive state funds,
Okay.
and so they are basically what students pay in tuition, and the state figures things out. We have about $1.8 to $2 million in our budget.
Awesome.
However, if we go over, because we're a mandated service, UCLA's been the chancellor has been very generous in that he'll pick up anything that we can't cover.
Are students with physical abilities that affect their mobility given priority enrollment to ensure that they can get a scheduled classes within reasonable distance and walking or commuting time between classes?
Yes. The hesitation there is students with permanent disabilities.
Okay.
If you've got a temporary disability, his priority enrollment takes place before the quarter starts. So it would be students with permanent disabilities that have disability-based reasons, which could be if they could cluster all their classes around, say, Bunch Hall, that would work for them. Or if they have public transportation issues, maybe they could do all their classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Or if their disability takes a lot of time in the morning to get ready, or an attendant to help bathe them, dress them, feed them, they could schedule afternoon and evening classes. So yes, if there's any connection to disability, we can give them priority enrollment.
Awesome, cool. And then boys and men.
And just a little bit more, our priority enrollment allows students to enroll in the college limit. Most colleges have a 19-unit limit, so our students can enroll 1, 2, or 3 days before it's open to everyone else, and they don't have a 10-limit unit.
Oh, okay.
But if the class still has restrictions, having priority enrollment doesn't get them lifted above that.
Cool.
And we do not offer priority enrollment the very first quarter year at UCLA, because we aren't an academic office, and we want to make sure you go through proper channels on how to enroll through either your college or the orientation office. Make sure people know how to use My UCLA properly.
And then boys and men with Duchenne muscular dystrophy eventually have severe weakness in their arms and hands as well as other muscles of their body. So what sort of accommodations would be provided to a student with DMD who might struggle to write, draw diagrams, bubble answers quickly during their exams?
Not only during their exams, but that person could have a classroom assistant. Say it's a lab class where they have to pour chemicals, measure things, weights, like a physics class. A classroom assistant would be hired by our office, most likely another student, but not a student in that class, because that student's in the class for a particular reason as well. But we'd hire a classroom assistant to do the measuring or the lifting of things. And similarly, if you have a test and you can't bubble in the Scantron or write answers, you might be able to use adaptive technology such as Dragon Natural Speak or Kurzweil, so you have speech to text. So that would be one way. Or if say it's a class, we'll say in Persian, I don't know that we don't have Persian Dragon, so you'd talk to someone and they'd write your answers for you.
Okay.
And you'd also get additional time because going back and forth, oh no, I meant of, not have. So we'd do a correction. So additional time and a writer and or a computer to be used for tests.
Okay, that's great.
One thing we don't provide homework assistance. Maybe the technology of a computer can help you get through your homework, but we don't hire a student to work with you to do, say, your math problems. We don't do that. Students need to find a way to get their math done,
Got
or
it.
something similar.
Cool. And then Duchenne is also associated with a higher incidence of some neuropsychiatric disorders, such as ADHD and autism spectrum disorder. What would be some classroom and testing resources available to a student with these conditions?
There's a couple things. Let's just say the person came to UCLA with only a diagnosis of DMD, but that developed while they're here. They can be referred to CAPS for specific testing about anxiety, stress, or other neuropsychological issues, or to ASH and get the diagnoses. And if the diagnosis comes back with some functional limitations, we can review what the student was approved for in the first place. That some of those disabilities might require even more time for testing. They may require extensions for assignments. They may require letters to professors. That may require a classroom assistant. So we could reevaluate it. So nothing is engraved in concrete. When you're here, we do look at your documentation and your functional limitations, but if they change during the course of being here, as long as we get documentation about that change and those functional limitations, we can reevaluate what we can do for you.
Awesome. Cool.
And I know we're talking about DMD. In my 25 years here, I think we've had 2 students that had DMD. There may have been more, because when I first started here, I just thought MD. I didn't know there was such a thing as DMD, but I'm clearly well aware of that now. But we've had maybe 2 students with DMD.
Cool. All right, and then what is the most common complaint that you receive about accessibility and resources for students with disabilities on campus, especially regarding wheelchair accessibility? So like complaint or like just like comments that you receive?
We rarely get comments like that. Most likely someone might call us to say, oh, the elevator's out of order. And then we have a direct line to the elevator people to get that corrected. And I know that the elevator guy, there's more than one guy, there are 4 people. There's one guy has given me his phone number, and he said it's okay to give to students that have no other options, such as wheelchair users getting in and out of a building. I have his cell phone, and I can call him in the evenings too.
That's great.
That's the most common physical complaint we might get, because the campus is accessible. Every building on campus has either a ground floor entry or a ramped entry. Every building has elevators, and there's signage. Some of the parking structures don't have elevators, but a person can park on the first floor. We'll say like parking structure 5. They can park on the ground floor and get out. They can park on the 4th floor and take the catwalk into Anderson. Or they can park on the 6th floor and either get to Anderson or to in front of Rolfe Hall. So that takes care of the access there. They park on other floors that have to wheel around the building. But I think it's just 2 or 3 parking structures don't have elevators, but every building has elevators and it's accessible.
Awesome. And then what means of campus transportation do students who use wheelchairs have available to them? For example, are Bruin buses equipped with ramps, all of that?
Okay. Yes, every Bruin bus is equipped with a ramp or a lift that slides out and picks up people and brings them back in, or a ramp. So every Bruin bus is accessible. We offer a service through our office called the CA van service The area of service is Hillgard, Sunset, Veteran, and Wilshire. We'll pick up a student within that area. If he or she is a wheelchair user, we have a lift. We can lift them through the lift, tie them down because the ADA requires 4 tie downs so the wheelchair doesn't roll around. Take them to where they want to get to, untie them, use the lift to get them out, and they can go about their way. So we have that service, and that operates from 7:15 until 5:45 Monday through Friday. And Monday through Thursday, the university's Safe Ride program, which is offered through the CSOs, from 6 to 11, if they have a wheelchair user at one of their stops, they will stop and pick that person. They have access to our van and use our van to pick that person up.
Awesome.
So they have that. I'd say with great certainty that all the buses that service UCLA, Culver City, Big Blue, and MTA, they all have wheelchair lifts as well. And so we could pick up a student at the Strathmore bus turnaround, at Wilshire and Westwood if they took a rapid, or at the Luskin turnaround or Ackerman turnaround, and pick that student up to get them closer to class.
Awesome.
So we do that. But I think almost every form of transportation the university offers and that comes to campus is wheelchair accessible.
We are now at Poly Pavilion, where many UCLA sporting and recreation events are held throughout the year, such as basketball, volleyball, gymnastics, and the Bruin Bash.
Here, we are entering Poly Pavilion through the northwest entrance. Like all main entrances to Poly, this one contains a feature that allows wheelchair users to open the door automatically from both the inside and the outside. Once inside, there are signs indicating the closest elevator as well as entrances to the concourse level, which contains accessible seating. In order to look at the experience of a student with DMD who uses a wheelchair to navigate campus, we walked from Ackerman Union to Haynes Hall using only wheelchair accessible routes.